How do you turn a queen into a weapon? It's a simple, brutal formula. You wait for her husband to die. You ignore his will, steal his land, and declare his kingdom yours. And when she protests, you drag her into the center of her own village. You strip her bare, and you beat her with rods until her back is a ruin of blood and torn flesh. Then, for good measure, you let your soldiers violate her daughters. You do all this to make an example of her, to show her people that resistance is futile. You try to break her spirit, but sometimes you don't break a spirit. You forge it into something harder than iron. You give it a reason, and then you spend the rest of your short, terrified life praying she doesn't rise from the ashes you created. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Echoes in Time, the place where we find the quietest moments in history and turn up the volume. Before we get lost in the smoke and fire of tonight's story, if this is the kind of history that speaks to you, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a journey. Now, I want you to think about something for a second. What's the one line that, if crossed, would make you fight back against impossible odds, no matter the cost? Let me know in the comments below. It's a heavy question, I know, but tonight, we're going to meet a woman who answered it not with words, but with an inferno. Our story doesn't begin in a palace. There are no marble floors, no golden cradles, no silken sheets. It begins in a roundhouse, with a thatched roof and a floor of packed earth. Smoke from the central fire curls up through a hole in the ceiling, always looking like it's in a hurry to leave. Outside, the wind is a constant voice, humming a low, ancient song across the damp moors of eastern Britannia. Inside, a mother hums something older still. You are of the Iceni, a tribe clinging to the eastern edges of an island. The men from across the sea will one day call a frontier, a problem to be solved. But to you, it's just home. Your world isn't governed by maps, but by instincts. You learn the language of the rivers. You know the silent wisdom of the oaks, and you understand that the land will feed you as long as you respect it, and it will starve you if you don't. Childhood here isn't a sheltered garden. It's a trial by nature. You are wind-battered, mud-smeared, and sun-warmed in equal measure. You learn the rhythm of a horse's gallop before you can walk a straight line. You feel the familiar weight of a practiced spear in your hand long before you're ever taught to embroider, which is just as well. Because your attempts at needlework look like a spider lost a fight with the thread, and your parents, they encourage this. In your world, daughters must be as sharp as sons, maybe sharper. A son can be a dull blade and still inherit a name. A daughter has to earn her edge. The elders are your library. They don't read from scrolls. They pull stories from memory, their voices crackling like the fire they sit around. They tell you tales of horned gods who walk the forests, of queens with wills of iron, and of sacred rivers that have a habit of carrying cowards out to sea. You listen with wide eyes, your mouth full of honeyed oats, and you realize you don't just want to hear these stories. You want to become one. Life in the tribe is lived close to the land, but even closer to rumor. Whispers travel on the wind, tales of strange men in red cloaks and hobnailed sandals landing far to the south. They build roads straight as a spear shaft, where the earth never asked for a scar. They cut down sacred groves to make room for forts and tax collectors, but for now, they are a distant thunder. You don't spend your days thinking about Rome. You think about the torque around your neck, a heavy loop of bronze passed down from your mother, and her mother before that. You think about the feel of your pony beneath you, and you think about your name, Boudica, a name that means victory. You smile when you think of it. It feels less like a name and more like a prophecy waiting to be fulfilled. One day, the Romans will learn to pronounce it correctly. But for now, you are still growing, still watching the fog roll in off the sea, still waiting for your story to truly begin. By the time you are a young woman, you've absorbed the two great truths of Iceni life. First, the Romans are always planning something. And second, if you don't learn how to swing a blade, you'll almost certainly end up underneath one. You grow up surrounded by warriors, but not the kind you'd see in a Roman triumph. These aren't polished soldiers with matching shields and synchronized marching. They are hardened fighters with wild hair, voices that carry for miles, and absolutely no concept of indoor volume. Armor is mostly optional, but scars are a part of the uniform. Your tutors are not scholars. They are survivors. Lessons begin at dawn, not with arithmetic, but with the dull thud of a wooden practice sword against your shield and the sharp sting of a bruised shin. You learn to parry before you learn to properly breathe through your nose during a fight. Every meal seems to come with a side of training, whether it's dagger drills, spear throws, or just dodging the territorial goats that seem personally offended by your existence. You're taught to ride by a man who seems more horse than human and smells faintly of hay, because that's likely where he sleeps. Your first real mount is a shaggy pony with one good eye and the defiant attitude of a cornered badger. You form an immediate and unbreakable bond, but it's not all violence and ill-tempered livestock. You spend long evenings by the fire, listening to the elders argue about tribal matters, grazing rights, trade disputes, who's marrying whose cousin, with the same fierce intensity they'd reserve for a declaration of war. From them, you learn the warrior's other essential skills: when to speak, when to listen, and how to politely roll your eyes when someone's back is turned. And then there are the druids, the local mystics, wrapped in robes and riddles, who insist on involving you in solemn rituals among the standing stones and sacred oaks. They chant long-winded poetry that may or may not be about you, and one particularly dramatic elder insists the gods have chosen you. He's never quite clear on which gods, or for what purpose, but it sounds vaguely threatening. You grow into your name, Boudica, victory, and soon you are queen, not by birthright alone, but by a strategic alliance. You marry Prasutagus, the ruling king of the Iceni. He is a clever man, a cautious man, and most importantly, a man who has learned the delicate art of smiling politely at a Roman official while grinding his teeth so hard he could crack stone. Rome doesn't always conquer with legions. Sometimes it offers contracts instead of swords. That's what happened to your people after an earlier, failed revolt in 47 CE, long before your time. The Iceni leadership agreed to become a client kingdom of Rome, a friend, an ally. In theory, you remain independent. In reality, you are now expected to nod approvingly at Roman taxes, Roman architecture, and Roman governors who can't pronounce your husband's name but act as if they own it. As queen, your life changes. You move into a larger roundhouse, one now decorated with imported Roman pottery and frequented by visitors in polished armor who smell faintly of olive oil and superiority. You wear finer wool and jewelry shipped from Gaul, but you never let yourself forget the cold, hard feel of iron in your hand. You host feasts, you pour wine, you endure Roman small talk, which is somehow both arrogant and boring. One visiting procurator gifts you a polished bronze mirror. You are tempted to return the favor with a hand axe. Still, you play the role. You learn that diplomacy is just another kind of warfare, one fought with smiles and carefully chosen words. You watch Prasutagus walk the tightrope of his reign. He trades with Rome. He keeps the peace, but he never, ever fully trusts the hand he is shaking. Together, you rule a tribe that has not surrendered, but has not rebelled. Yet, in this uneasy peace, you give birth to 2 daughters, 2 strong, sharp-eyed girls who ride like the wind and, when provoked, bite like it too. You teach them to speak with fire in their hearts. You don't raise them to marry well. You raise them to survive. Then, your husband, the careful king, grows sick. The illness spreads through him slowly, like ink seeping into water. Prasutagus knows what Rome does. He knows what happens to tribal lands when their client kings die without a succession plan that Rome approves of. So, he does what he believes is the wisest, most clever thing he can do. He writes a will. In it, he names the Roman emperor as co-heir to his kingdom, alongside you and your 2 daughters. He thinks it's a brilliant compromise, a bridge between 2 worlds, a way to protect his family. But he was wrong. Rome doesn't do co-parenting, especially not with barbarian women. You bury your husband in the cold, damp earth. You place his golden torque on the funeral pyre, and then you wait, not for your grief to pass, but for Rome to arrive. And you know, with a cold certainty in the pit of your stomach, that they will not be coming with condolences. They will be coming with chains. Your husband's body is barely cold in the earth when they arrive, not with solemn faces and gestures of respect, but with the brisk efficiency of auditors, Roman administrators, wearing smug expressions and impractical purple-trimmed cloaks, descend upon your settlement. They don't bring condolences. They bring scrolls, debt collectors, and a particularly punchable air of entitlement. Prasutagus' will, the clever document meant to secure your future by naming the emperor and his family as co-heirs. They ignore it, conveniently misinterpreted. They say, according to their new reading of Roman law, a client king's death means his kingdom and all its wealth reverts entirely to Rome. The empire claims everything: your land, your weapons, your livestock, your treasury, even the very throne you sit on. As if the grief of widowhood wasn't insulting enough, they inform you that the Iceni are no longer a client ally. You are now fully annexed territory. No vote, no ceremony, just a mountain of Latin paperwork and a forced smile. You tried diplomacy first. You are a queen. After all, you quote their own laws back at them, pointing out the terms of the original client agreement. They quote the sharp edge of a gladius back at you. Then it escalates, quickly and brutally. Roman soldiers, centurions, storm your home. They don't bring an army. They don't need one, just enough men to send a message. They tear the royal torques from the necks of your chieftains. They seize property, and then they turn to you. They strip you of your royal robes. They beat you, publicly, the queen of the Iceni, lashed with rods, dragged through the dirt in front of your own people, and your daughters, the 2 girls you raised to be fire and wind. You dare not even speak the horror aloud. What the soldiers did to them was beyond cruelty. It was the kind of cold, calculated trauma that Rome writes off as establishing order, the kind of violation that never, ever leaves a mother's heart. You hold them afterward, the 2 of them trembling and silent in your arms. You look into their young eyes, and you don't see fear. You see a terrifying, hollowed-out understanding. And in that moment, something ancient and cold stirs inside you. Something the Romans, in all their civilized arrogance, could never have predicted. Fury with a purpose. The village elders urge patience. They whisper of survival, of waiting, of enduring this shame in silence. They fear Rome's retribution if you react. You do not scream. You do not cry. Not yet. But inside you, in the silent, burning ruin of your heart, a new oath is being written in blood and fire. The Iceni are watching you. Your people kneel in the dirt beside you, not in weakness, but in a shared, simmering rage. This wasn't just an insult to a queen. This was a message to every Briton. You will bow, or we will break you. And you think, as you taste the blood on your lips, if they wanted you broken, they should have killed you. You don't rise from that dirt for your own dignity. You rise because the land itself seems to demand it. The ancestors demand it. The gods of oak and iron demand it. You rise because your daughters will never, ever be anyone's spoils of war. And somewhere far away, in a villa filled with maps and ledgers, a Roman official has no idea that they've just made the worst mistake of their lives. They've just given a queen a reason to live up to her name. By the way, if you're finding yourself drawn into this story, please take a second to hit that like button. It truly helps the channel grow and tells me you appreciate these deep dives into history's most powerful figures. The wound has not healed. It can't. But now, it bleeds forward. You don't make grand speeches at first. You don't need to. Every person in your tribe has seen your scarred back. They've seen the haunted look on your daughters' faces. That is the only campaign poster you will ever need. But war needs more than just pain to sustain it. It needs momentum, so you ride village to village, campfire to council fire. Your presence alone does most of the talking. You are tall, fierce, wrapped in a wolf fur cloak, your long red hair unbound and wild in the wind. Some say your eyes now gleam like hot coals. That's probably an exaggeration, but you let them believe it. You've learned that fear, when aimed correctly, can travel much faster than truths. You speak of freedom, but not in the pretty metaphors of politicians. You speak plainly, because rage doesn't need poetry. You remind them of what the Romans did. To you, to your daughters. To them, you name the crippling taxes, the floggings for missed payments, the gods they've disrespected, the sacred groves they've desecrated. The tribes begin to gather. First, the Trinovantes, old enemies of Rome who hold their own deep grudges. Then others join. Britons who never trusted you before, who saw you as a Roman-friendly queen, suddenly see you for what you've become. Vengeance given flesh. You sharpen not just your weapons, but your people's memories. You smear your face with blue woad, the dye staining your skin like a creeping frost. This isn't just for intimidation, though it works. It's a ritual, a rebirth. You are not the woman who was beaten. You are the storm she became. Your army grows. Thousands, then tens of thousands. Peasants with sharpened sickles stand beside warriors with long swords. Druids, with eyes that seem to stare through you, chant by the fires at night. Even the old and the lame bring what they can. Food, horses, stories of Roman arrogance. You ride in a chariot, its wheels fitted with iron blades designed to slice through flesh and bone. Your daughters ride with you. They are not ornaments. They are omens. This is a family affair now. You are a mother, not just of children, but of rebellion. Word of your growing army inevitably reaches Roman ears. At first, they laugh. The beaten queen, leading an army of farmers. How quaint. Then, their scouts report the numbers, the scale, the coordination. The Romans stop laughing, but they still don't quite believe it. After all, Britons are known for bickering. Tribes feud. And women are supposed to mourn. They don't lead wars. They don't burn Roman cities to the ground. But you are not here to meet their expectations. You are here to set them on fire. The smoke rising from your campfires is a promise. Soon, very soon, the smoke will be rising from theirs. Your first target is chosen with cold, strategic fury. Camulodunum, the first major Roman colony in Britain. Once, it was a tribal stronghold of the Trinovantes. Now, it's a retirement community for Roman legionary veterans, a city fat with smugness and imported marble, a model city meant to show the Britons how to be civilized. It even has a grand temple, built not to your gods, but to the deified Emperor Claudius. Worshipping a dead Roman corpse is their idea of sacred. Your people call it offensive architecture. You do not arrive quietly. Your army is too vast to hide, a rolling tide of humanity that kicks up a dust cloud visible for miles. And frankly, you have no interest in hiding. Subtlety is for traitors. This is a declaration. The Roman officials in the city scramble. There are no active legions stationed here, just retired soldiers, their families, and merchants who thought their fighting days were long over. They arm themselves with rusted parade armor and swords meant for display. They are preparing speeches, not defenses. You give them neither quarter nor the time to deliver them. The city falls in a matter of hours. Your army moves like a force of nature, smashing through the weakly defended gates, toppling columns, and setting fire to villas. Your chariots, those iron-bladed nightmares, circle the city center, driving the terrified colonists into narrow streets where they are cut down. The Roman citizens scream for mercy. You remember screaming once, too, but not today. There is no mercy here, only judgment. The Temple of Claudius is the last bastion to fall. The remaining defenders barricade themselves inside, praying to a stone god in a stone house. It takes 2 days for the fire to do its work, slow and thorough, like your memory. By the 3rd day, Camulodunum is nothing but ash and silence. The message has been sent. Rome has lost a city, not to another empire, but to the very people it claimed to have already conquered. You stand among the ruins. You don't smile. This isn't joy. It is a grim necessity. The wind shifts, and the smoke clings to your cloak like a shroud. Somewhere behind you, your daughters are collecting bits of scorched bronze, trophies from the fallen temple. You let them. They deserve to carry the weight of this victory. But this is only the beginning. The next target is richer, larger, and far more important. A city that represents the beating heart of Roman commerce in Britain, Londinium. Next, Verulamium. It's not just Roman. It's Roman with ambition. Streets paved with imported stone, fountains that flow without asking the land's permission, and villas that stretch wider than most tribal clearings. It isn't a military post. It's a statement of cultural dominance, a polite one wrapped in mosaics and crushing taxes. You head there next. By now, the message precedes you. The merchants of Verulamium have heard of Camulodunum and Londinium. The wealthy flee, clutching their silver and their ledgers. You let them go. Vengeance, you've learned, has a schedule. When you arrive, the city is a hollow shell. The gates fall open like rotten fruit. Your warriors pour through, and the flames follow. The town center, once designed to awe, cracks and collapses under the weight of its own pride. A scroll is tossed from a balcony and lands at your feet. You glance down. Latin, columns of numbers, and one word repeated over and over: tribute. You offer a grim, humorless smile and toss it into the fire. By the time it's done, you've burned 3 Roman cities to the ground. But now, you ride through a landscape of your own making. Ash clings to your boots, your hair, your breath. The gods have had their offering. 3 cities, burned to their bones. But you're starting to feel the weight, not of regret, no, but of consequence. Your army is massive, a glorious and bloated beast. Too many mouths to feed, too much loot to carry, not enough discipline. The chariots that once carried only weapons now creak under the weight of stolen pottery and fine Roman furniture. Some of your warriors wear gold necklaces over their furs and Roman tunics like trophies. A few have swapped their spears for wine jugs. They still cheer your name, but something is changing. This is no longer just an army of vengeance. It has become a movement, a myth, a force of momentum. And momentum has no brakes. Rome is regrouping. The governor, Suetonius Paulinus, has returned from his campaign in Wales with a real army this time. Hardened veterans from the 14th Legion, men who live and breathe discipline. You hear he's chosen the battlefield, a narrow valley with woods at his back. No room for your chariots to sweep around the flanks. A bottleneck, a killing ground. You've burned cities, but cities don't fight back. Now you will face soldiers, the kind who don't panic when you scream. The day of the final battle dawns. You approach with confidence born of fire and blood. Your army stretches across the horizon, a chaotic sea of tens of thousands. You outnumber the Romans more than 10 to 1. The gods have favored you this far. Why not one last time? But as you survey the field, something feels wrong. The Romans are waiting, not panicking, not scrambling, just waiting. Their formations are terrifyingly tight. You can't see their faces, only a wall of shields and silence. They are not running. They are ready. You line up your forces. The war horns blare, a sound that has made cities tremble. Your daughters are beside you in the chariot, their eyes fierce and bright. You call out to your gods, a prayer that is also a scream, a declaration of intent. Then you give the signal. You charge, and the Roman wall doesn't move. Your warriors slam into it like a wave crashing against a cliff. Again and again, the sound is thunder spears snapping, shields splintering, voices cracking with effort and pain. But their line holds. It always holds. The valley itself turns against you. Your superior numbers become your biggest weakness, clogging the field, leaving no room to maneuver, to retreat, or even to breathe. Your own men become the wall that pins you in place. And then, the counterstrike. Rome doesn't just defend, it advances, slowly, cruelly, with perfect timing, like clockwork, powered by death. Their wedge formations pierce your chaotic lines. The cavalry, held in reserve, now sweeps in from the sides. What began as a glorious charge devolves into a crush, a rout, a slaughter. You scream until your throat is raw. You try to turn the chariot, to rally your men, to pull your daughters back from the front, but the press of bodies is too thick. The chariots are jammed. The ground is slick with blood. You didn't expect this. Not here. Not like this. The wind that once carried your banners of fire now carries only ash and the sound of your people dying. This is not a battle. It is an extermination. The Romans have remembered who they are, and they are done running. You stay until the very end, even as the screams fade to whimpers, even as the earth turns a muddy red beneath your chariot's wheels, even as the sky fills not with divine fire, but with the black wings of crows. You do not run. You dismount when your chariot can go no farther. You find your daughters amid the chaos. They are alive, bloodied, but breathing. You press your forehead to theirs. One by one, there are no words left, only a shared fire and a shared end. You retreat only when you must. Slipping into the woods like a shadow, you find a quiet hollow, untouched by the carnage. You sit beneath a twisted yew tree, your daughters beside you. The battle was not just a defeat. It was the end of a dream, the dream of a Britain that could belong to itself. History will say you poisoned yourself, choosing death over capture. Maybe that's true. No one will ever really know. What matters is this: you did not die on your knees. You did not die in chains. You rose. You burned. You fought. And you gave the Roman Empire a scar it would never, ever forget. They will claim victory, of course, but even the Roman historians would admit it. Your rebellion nearly lost them. Britain, you weren't just a queen, you were a storm in human form, and long after your body returns to the earth, your name, Boudica, will echo through fear, through fire, through every woman who is told to be quiet and refuses. What is true victory? Is it winning the final battle? Or is it becoming a symbol so powerful that it can never be erased? I think Boudica's story gives us an answer. Her rebellion was crushed, but her legend was born. Rome was forced to change its policies, to rule Britain with a lighter, more cautious hand. They learned a valuable lesson that day, that there is nothing more dangerous than a person with nothing left to lose. Thank you for joining me on this journey back in time. If this story moved you, please consider hitting that subscribe button and sharing it with someone who loves history as much as we do. And let me know your thoughts in the comments. Does Boudica's story inspire you? Until next time, stay curious. Take a deep breath. What do you smell? The air in your room, the lingering scent of coffee, perhaps a subtle hint of perfume on your wrist. Now, imagine a scent that could open a gateway to the gods, a scent worth more than gold, and a scent that could help a queen seduce an empire. That isn't magic, it's history, distilled into a single drop. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Echoes in Time. Tonight, we aren't following the footsteps of kings or the clash of armies. Instead, we're following an invisible trail, one woven from sacred smoke, flower petals, and humanity's oldest whispers. Before we get lost in this fragrant world, if you're new here, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. And let me know, what's your favorite scent? And why is it special to you? Share it in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, find a comfortable corner, and let's begin our journey together. Let's begin with smoke. Thin, curling, persistent, it rises slowly through the air of a sacred hall, the kind of place built with silence in mind. We are in ancient Mesopotamia, or perhaps Egypt, or maybe a temple in India. The location doesn't much matter, because the practice is nearly the same. Here, fragrance is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Priests, barefoot and robed, carry small clay burners or bronze censers filled with glowing embers. Upon these, they drop beads of resin, the hardened sap of trees gathered from distant lands. Frankincense, with its bright, citrus edge. Myrrh, darker, earthier, almost bitter. The moment it touches the coal, it sizzles, then smokes, then perfumes. The air is no longer just air. It has been sanctified. In the temples of Egypt, they took this even further. A blend known as kaifi was meticulously prepared. It was a complex mixture of over a dozen ingredients: wine, honey, raisins, juniper berries, and cinnamon among them. It wasn't cooked during the day. It was prepared at dusk, when the coolness allowed the aromas to rise more gently. Kaifi wasn't just a fragrance, it was a ritual in itself. The making of it was prayer. The burning of it was offering. Its scent was believed to soothe the gods and calm the dead. In ancient India, sandalwood and camphor played similar roles. In Greece, temples burned aromatic woods to accompany hymns. Why all this attention to smell? Because for the ancients, scent was a pathway, a road from the mortal world to the divine. Unlike a statue or a song, scent is invisible and persistent. It travels in all directions. It reaches you even if you close your eyes. To ancient peoples, that made it sacred. So the temples remained fragrant, constantly, not just during ceremonies. The very air became an offering. A place could smell holy. And if a place could smell holy, then maybe, just maybe, so could you. Now let's drift east, to the warm shores of Egypt, to the glittering city of Alexandria. Imagine the breeze coming off the Mediterranean, salty, warm, heavy with jasmine and sandalwood. Cleopatra, queen of the Nile, a ruler, a linguist, an alchemist of seduction, did not simply wear perfume, she crafted legend from it. Cleopatra understood something few rulers truly grasped. The nose has a powerful memory. Long after gold has dulled and words have faded, a scent lingers. It clings to memory. So she used it, not only to entice, but to command. She wasn't merely perfumed, she was an experience. According to the Roman historian Plutarch, Cleopatra once had the sails of her royal barge soaked in perfume oils of rose and cinnamon, so that her arrival could be detected by scent alone. Long before she came into view, the air around her was deliberately curated. You smelled Cleopatra before you saw her. You remembered her long after she had left. Inside her palace, she had perfume laboratories, where attendants mixed oils with myrrh, balsam, and rare resins from Arabia and India. These weren't just pleasant concoctions. Cleopatra studied them. She experimented. She believed certain scents could stir passion, bring sleep, or even shift fate. She wasn't wrong. This was aromatherapy, thousands of years before the term existed. Yet her perfumes were more than romantic. They were political tools. When Cleopatra met Julius Caesar, and later Mark Antony, she was already a master of timing, dress, and smell. She knew which oils to wear in which settings. Frankincense in temples, neroli for banquets, musk and spikenard in her private chambers. Every note had a purpose. There is even a legend that Cleopatra once created a scent so alluring that it caused a general to forget his own name. That may be fiction, but what is certain is this: no other ruler made fragrance into a language as she did. For Cleopatra, perfume was not indulgence, it was power. It was strategy, a whisper delivered not by voice, but through the air itself. Now let the breeze take us to the marble courtyards of Greece and Rome, lands of columns, scrolls, and long philosophical walks. But tonight, we do not come for debate. We come for fragrance. The Greeks approached scent with curiosity. They believed aroma was more than decoration. It shaped behavior, even morality. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, recommended aromatic baths and massages to maintain balance in the body and mind. For him, rosemary oil wasn't just pleasant, it was medicinal. Sandalwood soothed, myrrh purified, scent aligned the soul, but not everyone agreed. The philosopher Plato looked upon perfume with suspicion. In his view, perfume softened a man's character, made him lazy, indulgent. A strong citizen, he argued, should smell of hard work. of olive oil and wisdom, not of exotic spices from faraway lands. Yet, in practice, most Greeks ignored him. Fragrance remained popular at banquets, weddings, and athletic festivals. Wreaths of lavender or mint were worn on the head, not just for style, but to keep the mind alert. Then came the Romans, and they didn't just adopt Greek perfumes, they escalated the entire affair. Romans perfumed everything. They bathed in rosewater, scented their clothes with saffron, and even sprinkled perfume dust on banquet floors, so that each footstep released a new wave of fragrance. At grand feasts, guests were anointed with oils between courses. Some wealthy Romans had fountains that sprayed perfumed water into the air. The Emperor Nero once ordered an entire ceiling to rain rose petals and myrrh down upon his guests. And yet, even the Romans argued about the excess. Seneca the Younger, a Stoic philosopher, complained that the public baths reeked of too many perfumes. Not of man, he said, but of a bouquet. To him, virtue did not wear cologne. Still, perfumes remained deeply embedded in Roman life. In romance, ritual, and death, perfume bottles made of glass, alabaster, or clay were buried with the dead. Scent was not just for the living, it was for remembrance. In both Greece and Rome, perfume walked a fine line between luxury and necessity, virtue and vice. By the way, as we think about this, do you see modern fragrances as a necessary form of self-expression, or more of a luxury? Let me know your thoughts. And if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to hit the like button to support the channel. Now let us drift further back in time, to the cradle of civilization, where rivers cradle reeds and ziggurats rise like steps to the heavens. Ancient Mesopotamia, Sumer, Akkad, Babylon, long before Cleopatra's perfumed sails or Roman rosewater fountains, people here were already obsessed with scent. In clay tablets dating back over 4,000 years, we find recipes for perfumes. Some were dedicated to gods, others to kings. These early perfumers used crushed herbs, resins, and flowers, mixed into animal fats or pressed oils, myrrh, cypress, calamus root, even cedar ground into a paste. These were not random mixtures. They followed proportions, methods. They wrote it all down in cuneiform script. The first known perfume manuals. Scent was deeply tied to status. The priests of the great temples anointed statues of deities daily, not with water, but with sacred oils. To neglect the scenting of a god's statue was considered sacrilege. Fragrance maintained cosmic order. That which smelled good was pure. That which stank was chaos. In Babylon, the hanging gardens may or may not have existed, but aromatic plants like coriander, thyme, and roses certainly did. The palace gardens weren't just for food or beauty. They were perfume factories. As the wind blew through them, the very air became an extension of the king's power. Let's follow the trail now, not of armies or empires, but of fragrance itself, invisible, persistent, and profoundly valuable. This is the story of the spice routes, the arteries of ancient trade where perfume was born, bottled, and sent drifting across civilizations. Long before perfumes were mass-produced, their ingredients had to be hunted, harvested, and hauled, sometimes over thousands of miles. Myrrh from the Horn of Africa, cinnamon from Sri Lanka, spikenard from the Himalayas, frankincense from southern Arabia, where special trees bled golden resin. These weren't just exotic aromas, they were currency. The demand was constant. Babylon wanted frankincense. Egypt needed myrrh. Greece adored rose oil. Rome demanded everything. But none of these civilizations had all the ingredients locally. So merchants set out, by camel caravan, by ox cart, by fragile ship. They crossed blistering deserts and stormy seas, their cargo sealed in clay pots or goatskin pouches. Perfume ingredients were precious and perishable. A single cracked jar of oil could ruin a merchant's fortune, but the rewards, enormous. In some periods, a pound of cinnamon was worth more than its weight in silver. Along these routes, ideas traveled to techniques and recipes. Perfume was not merely traded, it was transformed. In India, perfumers experimented with distillation. In Arabia, they refined techniques for capturing floral essences using oil maceration. In Persia, fragrance became entwined with poetry, medicine, and paradise itself. By the time the materials reached Greece or Rome, they carried not only a scent, but a story. A vial of spikenard wasn't just exotic, it was legendary. Kings had traded for it. Saints would one day be anointed with it. These ancient highways, stretching from China to the Mediterranean, weren't marked by signs or milestones, but by smell. Enter a market in Damascus, and the air would be thick with cardamom, saffron, and sandalwood. Turn a corner in Petra, and you'd pass walls lined with shops selling resin and rose petals. The city smelled like the world. Now, let us walk softly into the sacred groves and stone temples of ancient India, where fragrance was not just worn, it was worshipped. In India, scent was woven into every layer of life: medicine, ritual, love, and philosophy. The Vedas, some of the oldest scriptures known, speak of perfumes and incense as gifts to the gods. Offerings of ghee, camphor, and sandalwood were burned not to mask odor, but to elevate prayer. Scent was seen as a purifier, not of places, but of souls. Among the most revered was sandalwood smooth, creamy, and cooling. It was ground into a paste and applied to statues of deities, to the foreheads of priests, and to the bodies of the dead. The scent was considered calming to both gods and humans. To apply it was to align oneself with peace. Other popular ingredients included agarwood, vetiver, and jasmine. Jasmine garlands weren't just decorations for weddings and festivals. They were believed to awaken feelings of love and divine connection. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Indian perfumery was its link to meditation and healing. In the system of Ayurveda, certain smells were said to balance the body's energies, known as doshas. For example, cooling vetiver soothed inflammation, warming cinnamon stirred sluggish circulation. The nose, in this philosophy, was the entrance to the brain, and therefore the gateway to consciousness itself. Let us now cross into ancient China, a land of balance, silence, and subtle beauty. Here, scent was not loud or lavish. It whispered, it drifted gently, like calligraphy in the air. In early Chinese culture, perfume was not about adornment or seduction. It was about harmony. Scent aligned the spirit with nature and brought the inner world into balance with the outer one. It was philosophy, not fashion. The ancient Chinese used incense far more than oils. Oils were considered too strong, too assertive. Incense, on the other hand, had discipline. It could be measured, timed, and shaped. Thin coils burned for hours, marking the passage of the day. In Buddhist temples, monks used sandalwood and agarwood incense to focus their meditation. The soft smoke served as both a clock and a compass, leading the mind inward. Confucian scholars, too, were deeply devoted to incense. A quiet study would not be considered complete without a bronze censer gently smoking in the corner. The scent was thought to cleanse the mind before study or writing. It wasn't decoration, it was preparation. In Taoist practice, fragrance symbolized qi, the vital energy of life. If your surroundings smelled wrong, your body was probably imbalanced. Aromatic herbs like cassia bark, star anise, and clove were prescribed not only to improve scent, but to restore health. Fragrance, medicine, and spirit were all one. Take one last breath now, a breath that travels across time, across deserts and rivers, palaces and temples. We return to the present, but the fragrance of the ancient world still lingers. Faintly, stubbornly, much of what was once known about ancient perfumery has vanished. The formulas were kept as secrets, guarded by priests, physicians, and perfumers. Many were lost to fire, flood, or conquest. And yet, here and there, whispers remain. In 2012, archaeologists unearthed a 2,000-year-old perfume factory in Cyprus, with burnt clay vats and traces of lavender and olive oil. In Egypt, Residues found in tomb jars suggested mixtures of myrrh, cinnamon, and lotus oil. Even Cleopatra's own perfumes have been reimagined. A team of researchers in 2019 claimed to reproduce one of her signature blends based on ancient recipes. The result: dark, spicy, earthy, and long-lasting. Not the kind of perfume found in modern shops, but something deeper, something older. Perfume, after all, is memory suspended in oil. It tells stories silently. You cannot hold it, yet it holds you. A single drop can carry 1,000 years. Today, the descendants of those ancient scents live on, in rituals, in medicine, in flowers pressed between pages. Modern perfumers still use frankincense and myrrh. Just as in Mesopotamia, rose oil is still expensive and beloved. Just as Cleopatra favored, even the idea of scent as sacred remains. Lighting a scented candle to relax, choosing a special perfume for a special evening. These gestures are ancient. We just forgot how ancient. History isn't just written on stone or paper. Sometimes it's written in the air, and all we have to do to read it is breathe. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this journey into the world of fragrance, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who also loves the hidden stories behind everyday things. And let me know which ancient culture's use of perfume fascinated you the most. Until next time, stay curious.